Hello everyone, my name is Captain Jack and welcome to Trek Central. I am joined by my fantastic co-host today, Mr. Dom. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, yes. I'm looking forward to talking about stuff today.
Indeed, and today we're here on a special episode of a Trek Central sort of podcast and weekly show we do occasionally, and this is talking about the Captain Picard week, because of course we are now 1 week or just under 1 week away from Star Trek Picard Season 2. Wow, and it's part of Strange New Pod's week of celebrations for Captain Picard week. There are a ton of fantastic people hosting some great events all around. We was invited to join ourselves, myself and Dom got together, and we're going to be discussing Picard's greatest speeches today, because I think we can agree, Dom, Picard has some cracking speeches in his time. We've all got our favourites.
Yes, indeed. He is very good at speeches.
Exactly. Now, fantastic. Many other people are joining this show as well. Star Trek Discovery Pod, for example, Discotech Podcast, Trek Untold, Le Quadrant Pop, who I personally listen to occasionally. They're all joining the sort of Captain Picard week scheduling. You can find out more details. Obviously, you're watching it on there now, and also we're promoting stuff on the Trek Central site as well. Don't forget to head over to strangenewpod.com to learn the full details, and of course, head over to their Twitter account. We're great friends with them and can't wait to take part in this. It's going to be amazing. Right, let's talk about Picard speeches. Now, you was wanting to talk about the measure of a man today, wasn't it?
Yes, as you can see from behind me.
Indeed, yeah.
In the really pixelated background I have. I really love The Measure of Man as an episode, but Picard's speech during this episode on what essentially constitutes a living being, talking about whether data is a person or property. And not only how he's delivering that speech, but how he targets it towards Bruce Maddox, who's the person arguing that data is property and should be dismantled so I can make more of them, to Philippa Louvois, the, I think, Attorney General, who's presiding over this judgment, and just how he targets it and gets to the truth of the matter during the speech is amazing to see in the episode and really sits with you for a long time.
It's fantastic. I particularly like that one because it's sort of that court case scene as well, and also Picard's speech about, how valuable data is. But not just the speech, but also the court case in general, how he proves that the data can be turned off. It all connects with that speech towards the end there, and it works out fantastic, I think.
Yes, and definitely, asking Bruce Maddox, okay, so what constitutes sentience? And then going through the three different things of intelligence, self-awareness, and consciousness to prove that data is sentient. And, it's Starfleet's mission to find new civilizations, new life forms. And there it is sitting in front of us. And we will be judged by how we treat this new life form, especially if eventually people like Bruce Maddox or other people, as we've seen in Picard, making new androids, and we will be judged as a people, as a species, by how we treat this new race.
Which is also a message for Star Trek, particularly the Prime Directive, in a sense, really. There. It connects with that, where it's we are judged by our actions and how we treat others. I mean, that can be applied through many things, and we see this in Star Trek all the time. People have got this opinion of the Federation and Starfleet because something has happened to the others. I mean, we sort of see that a bit in Star Trek Prodigy, in a sense, the newly released animated show from Nickelodeon, where, I can say this now because we have a couple of weeks out, but obviously minor spoilers in case you haven't watched it just yet. The Diviner is very angry of how his people were treated when First Contact came around with Starfleet. And obviously, I don't want to spoil it too much there, but how that whole sort of thing developed there. It's how you treat things and how things go based on treating them can affect it. So Picard's speech connects really well there. He does address the ramifications of Data's type of androids being treated as machines when they're indeed sentient. I think it connects really well. If anything, it's a great message for the rest of Star Trek just because of how well it connects.
And I think you definitely have gone to a point where a lot of the really great Picard speeches go on this topic of how do we treat people, especially in other episodes like Drumhead and The Wounded. I think it's The Wounded with the Cardassians.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and just how we as people treat others and what that means for us is pervasive in all of Picard's speeches.
I totally agree. I almost feel like it's a lesson and a message as well, not just to the people that's going on in Star Trek, but also to the viewers as well. Picard's speech in The Measure of a Man is like it's about treating people differently, essentially. Like that's the core. If we break it down and remove the Star Trek layer of it, think of it as like a layer of cake, essentially. It's like a weird analogy I've come up with there. If we remove the layers and go to the base, it's about how you treat people differently. Like this, you break it down. That can be applied to very modern day things as well, which I think shows how well Picard's speech in The Next Generation and the whole Star Trek age as well, realistically. We can still apply the lessons Picard teaches us all the way back then, which is like, was it 1980 or 1990 for episode? I think it was 1980 something, wasn't it?
It would be like 1990.
1990, yeah. I honestly can't remember
off
the top
the
of my
head.
head.
It started in 89.
I'd have to double check. Maybe I'll put the date on screen. But yeah, but anyway, that still sticks up to today in like 2022 on how to treat people, like you'd want yourself to be treated. It's a core message. And I think more and more lately of what's going on all around the world in the last couple of years and in the future as well, treating people, with respect, because they are also sentient life forms essentially and human beings. It's a core message that can be taken away from that and applied new things. That's what Star Trek's very good at, is having these core messages. You get what I'm on about. I think viewers at home will get what I'm on about as well. Like, it connects really well, is my point.
Yeah, it has very timeless messages. And, it's a shame that these things which were discussed in the 80s and 90s are still needed to this day. But even if that's the case, it's still good to hear these messages and to take them to heart.
I totally agree. It's a really cool message at the end of the day, which does so well. Like, he's arguing like this is why this is bad. I'm right, essentially. That's essentially how it's going. But I can't get over how well it applies like modern day scenarios in a sense. Like now I'm thinking about it more and more. It's been ages since I've actually personally watched The Measure of a Man. Because I'm going to talk about the jump head in a second. But
there's definitely a specific part in his speech where he's like, what we do today will enable us to expand freedoms for some and curtail freedoms for others. And, we will be judged by the law we make here today, so make it a good law. And, we see this in the world today with freedoms being taken away for like LGBT people in America.
Particularly recent events, yeah.
Especially, I think it's Texas, yeah. And just how, we will be judged for how we treat others. And we should really, respect all the differences of us as people.
I completely agree. And it just connects ever so well, I think, just because of, like, again, like, I can't like ram it home anymore how well it connects to current day scenarios and such. Like, it has to be a defining and pivotal moment for the Star Trek franchise as a whole. I think that speech really nailed Picard, because this was early TNG as well. This was season 2 Measure of a Man, wasn't it? Yeah, season 2 or 3?
Yes,
it was season 2.
Season 2, episode either 9 or 19.
I always forget earlier. I'm sure some people are going to agree with me. I always forget earlier next gen stuff for some reason. Like, once the season 3, I remember more, but I always forget. Apart from Pulaski, I always forget that. But like, this is also defined next gen as a show, and like, if we look back, probably we can find some research somewhere. It really stapled home of how well of a good show it was going to be because of a speech like that. It shows what type of man Picard is. Because season 1, it takes a bit of time to settle in there. Season 2, you're settling in a lot more to the role. Bam, this is where you get to learn more in-depth things about the characters here.
Definitely. And you do have like some good speeches in like Encounter with Farpoint, and probably some other episodes I'm forgetting. But
so many, isn't there?
I think Measure of a Man was when it was like, oh, this is, really trying to tell us something.
He also
That's
has
good sci-fi should, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. He does have the script of the speech in it was Encounter at Farpoint, which was the series premiere for TNG. And some people don't consider it the best thing in the world, but it's sort of like, it was the introduction to Q and Picard's speech, on defense of humanity. And that's, of course, a recurring thing throughout Next Generation as a whole, and might be touched on in season 2 of Picard, because we know John Delancey is returning, and hopefully next week we'll see...
The trial never ends.
Exactly, we'll see Q himself potentially. I'm not sure if he's in episode 1, but who knows. But I wonder if that will be brought up again, like the trial of humanity, and whether Picard will have another great speech. Here's a question for you, before we get on to my one about the drumhead. Do you think season 2 of Picard will have a really good speech from Sir Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard. I hope so.
Oh, I think so. I mean, we've seen some scenes from some of the trailers of Picard seemingly giving a speech at a Starfleet event.
And we also see him in
It,
the what I really noticed the alternate uniform. I get it was very alt in a sense. As somebody who goes to alt clubs, it's
yes,
very like dark and it's very emo in a sense, emo metal.
yeah, the evil monster marine. Yes.
We should call it emo now. We should go with that.
Yeah, so it does look, in a sense, not only is he giving, speeches in a general sense of speeches, but hopefully there are some nice speeches in there as well, because I think, Picard season 1 had a lot of good, I wouldn't call them speeches,
Yeah.
but sayings such as, fear is an incompetent teacher and don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. There's some good sayings there, but I don't think we really got a very meaty speech, which we know Picard for. So it would be interesting to get that in season 2 of the show.
I would love to see if, Picard has almost a first order speech when he's like the alt version of him. It's like, this is the last day of the Romulan Empire, or something like that. It'd be really funny. But I want to talk about the Drumhead. It's one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation, mainly because of Picard's speech in it, particularly the line where it's like, with the first link, the chain is forged, the first speech censored, the first thought forbidden, the first freedom denied, chains us all irrevocably, I think it is. I can never pronounce I can never pronounce that word myself. We'll add it to another word Jack can't pronounce in the Star Trek verse. We should start keeping lists of that at this point. My point is, this is one of the fantastic speeches for Next Gen, but also all of Star Trek, I think, because obviously the spirit of a drumhead, to catch people up on it who may have not seen it in years or maybe haven't seen it at all, it's completely fine. I would recommend watching it, by the way. It's called The Drumhead. It's Star Trek: The Next Generation. Basically, an admiral arrives on board in hunt of the spies, leaking information to the Romulan Star Empire, obviously the Romulans being the big bad of Star Trek: Next Generation, or one of them at least, and also a central focus for Star Trek Picard, and we presume they'll still be focused on in season 2 as well, so keep that in mind. They do capture the saboteur eventually, and this sort of retired admiral, I think she's retired, is basically giving this investigation and trial. A lot of people are brought to the stand, including Mr. Worf himself and Captain Picard. They go after this young sort of officer who I think was called Simon Tarsis, I believe. Yes. Yeah, I think it's Simon something. They eventually turn their eyes on Picard himself, don't they? It's a very twist episode. It's like, actually, no, you're in the wrong now. But eventually Picard managed to turn around and break down this sort of sham trial in a sense, or is what we call a drumhead, and that's where the episode name comes from, because the investigation sort of becomes xenophobic in a sense, and it's almost like a witch hunt that discards the truth. And obviously that builds into Picard's thing there about the first freedom being denied and how it changed everyone. And the speech for me, it connects so well with the entire episode, because what's scary at certain points, and I've spoken to many people over the years about this episode, people end up siding with Worf, who was in the wrong at one point in the episode, because of his hatred for Romulans and what they did to his parents. He wanted to believe the man was guilty at the end of the day. And obviously the speech eventually turned him around when the trial broke down. And I just think it's really cool how the episode and that speech challenges a lot of people and makes people sit back and go, wow, okay, yeah, that makes you think. I think that's one thing not only Star Trek does, but Picard specifically as a character, with his speeches and great inspirational moments, makes people think about what is going on, changes their mind. What did you think about the Drumhead when you first watched it?
Yeah, I really love that speech, especially I think the quote you said about the first link of the chain binding us irrecoverably. That's the thing that really stands out in that speech. And I think Picard as a character in these speeches, just like how in courtrooms, you burn away all this ancillary stuff to get to the truth. Picard in his speeches, really gets to the heart of the issue and burns away all the things around it to get to that heart and be like, this is what is happening right now, and really lays it out. For you to understand, oh, okay, that's a serious issue right there. So I think it's just Picard is really good at getting to the heart of these issues and speaking it out very well.
I couldn't agree more. It just fits ever so well, I think. And Oh, there's another part of the episode of Drumhead. It's the end part when he's speaking to Worf, because Worf comes to him, I think, at the end of
Mm.
it, and talks about it and like apologizes for being wrong, I believe, or like, incorrectly going after it because of, the whole Roman situation. And I think like if I just dropped a note a second. Yeah, it was like villains that twirl their mustaches are easy to spot, but those that clothe themselves in good deeds are well camouflaged. But she, Admiral Sate, I believe it was, or someone like her, will always be with us, waiting for the right climate in which to flourish, spreading fear in the name of righteousness. If anything, going back to what we said about the measure of a man, that little speech there, that was like a speech in a sense, and Picard's overall speech connects with modern day things again. We could make the comparison between his ending thing about villains twirling their mustaches to the idea of fake news, wanting to clothe themselves in good deeds but take advantage of false information to sort of like try and get their own way, or particularly when it says waiting for the right climate in which to flourish, spreading fear in the name of righteousness. That once again can be applied to modern day scenarios, I think, and again it's a testament to how Picard's speech still matters to this day in 2022 at the minute, and with current events and worldwide, I think that makes even more sense of how it connects.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's much harder to see these villains who, they're not doing it for evil, they're doing it for supposedly good. But when you see their decisions, their actions, their motives, you can tell, okay, they may be doing this for good, but they're doing it in dramatically the wrong way. And that is a big distinction that has to be made. Everybody is doing what they believe is good. No one's doing what they think is bad, but everyone's good and bad is different. And you've just got to really see what's being done and being said by people and view whether their actions have harm for other people, whether it's, curtailing the freedoms of some people in the name of good, but it's still curtailing freedoms.
For me, like, I think it was the episode of Drumhead, and that speech was ranked like one of the 10th great, or like one of the 10 greatest moments of like Picard ever. And I remember when we was researching, like, we think back 2 years ago now, which when season 1 of Star Trek Picard aired. Wow, that was a long time ago now, wasn't it? And how we was researching Picard content. I remember watching, and I think people started ranking that episode, particular speech, like, top second or third for Picard's greatest moments in Star Trek. And for me, like, it's always been up there as like just a fantastic moment for Picard. I loved it personally.
Yeah, I think I have to shout out a specific like YouTube video. I don't know the channel that made it, but there's a YouTube video called like Inspirational Speeches of Star Trek, and it has a picture of
Oh, I know
Picard
what you
with
mean,
like
yeah.
a rainbow Star Trek behind him, and it has Drumhead in it. And not only does it include, the great Picard speeches, but it includes all the great speeches and moments in Star Trek to some really, really thought-provoking emotional music. And, I watch that video probably every couple of months, and I'm still blown away by listening to all of it, whether it be from Picard or, surprisingly, a speech from Quark is really, really good about humanity. So it just goes to show how impactful not only Picard speeches are in Star Trek, but just a lot of Star Trek speeches are to us and to present day and what we are currently dealing with.
I completely agree because there's a meme I was about to say that it slipped my mind. I just love a bit at the end. Like, I can't go over the whole villains twirl their mustaches because it builds into the Drumhead speech there, and it does point out real world issues at the minute. And once again, it's what Picard's greatest speeches have actually done through the whole of time, and I think it just works super well. I'm trying to think of a connection point. What was it again? Or is it? Oh, it's the it connects a little bit with like the first duty in a sense, doesn't it? About how
Mm.
you need to like be truthful and be correct, and get your factual information correct. Because I think it's the episode of First Duty, which is where we have the Wesley Crusher situation about lying at Starfleet
Yes.
Academy, isn't it? And at the time, like, I've just drawn up the note again. It's like the first duty of every Starfleet officer is the truth, whether it's the scientific truth, historical truth, or personal truth. It's the guiding principle on which Starfleet is based. And if you can't find it within yourself to stand up and tell the truth about what happened, you don't deserve to wear that uniform. That speech as well echoes around like the halls of Star Trek, I'd say, particularly when we think about Starfleet Academy and things like that, because it's Sir Patrick Stewart's ability and his amazing talent to sort of like deliver lessons about values without sounding preachy in a sense. I don't think his speeches sound preachy. They sound just well delivered and straight to the point. And it's so well delivered in these speeches. It's not just told to the characters, like I said earlier, it's told to the viewer as well. And I think when we speak about the Drumhead and the First Duty and the Measure of Man, they all have a similar message of teaching the viewer a key sort of message in a sense. And obviously the Drumhead is, not letting your fear or hatred of something take away from the truth at the end of the day. I think that's a message we can take away from that one. The First Duty is about being truthful not only to yourself but also to those around you. So you do what you set out to do to the best ability, respecting that essentially. And obviously the Measure of a Man is respecting other sentient life forms and people who are not the same as you, which has always been a core message of Star Trek when you think about it.
Yes, definitely.
And for me, like, I just particularly love that. I'm really hoping with Picard season 2 we do get like a really strong speech. That would be something that's really cool. Like, obviously we know Star Trek Picard is ending at season 3. We need like one bloody good last, Jean-Luc Picard speech to send us off with. Because like you said, season 1 didn't really have some. Season 2 needs some.
Yes, definitely. I think it would be a great send off for the character if you do have a speech which goes through all these different things in a very through line, nice way, and just sums up what the character Picard stands for and what we can take from this character and apply to ourselves to be better.
I completely agree. It matches with I think just on an end point as well, like one of Picard's greatest, it's not really speech but it's saying was like, history will never forget the name Enterprise. And as in the Yesterday's Enterprise episode, I think that's also like just one of Picard's best moments, to be fair. And I know it's what speeches, I just had to mention that one because it is one of my favorites.
There's a lot of good sayings. And I think personally, like I said earlier with Star Trek Picard, something I tell myself regularly is that don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Because I think that just resonates a lot with me as a perfectionist. But also just, do as much good as you can. Don't let it not being the best it can be stop that, because
I got a counter quote for you.
Good is still good.
There's a counter quote that applies to that. So what do you say as a perfect not be the enemy of good, was it?
Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
I think I got one for you. It's like plan and prepare for every occasion, you'll never act. There you go. We're trading inspirational quotes there. That's actually from Xerxes, but also it was paraphrasing The Expanse, believe it or not, during Admiral Subaltern's speech, where it was, plan and prepare for every occasion, you never act. Essentially, like, if things are perfect, you're never actually going to do it. Like, at some point, you just need to take a leap of faith. And that's also a Star Trek message as well. It's like sometimes you have to trust the unknown and go for it. I mean, it is also exploring with Final Frontier.
There's another really nice Picard saying, which I can't remember the specific wording, but he is telling Data that, failure is not a bad thing, and it's very human to fail. I'm trying to remember the specific wording.
I can't remember one. I know what you mean, I think. Yeah. It also just reminded me of that sort of episode. There's like a banned episode or a censored episode of Star Trek where there was a speech, isn't it? I think it covers like terrorism or something like that. It's one of the earlier episodes where they're on the Tasha Yar's home planet, isn't it, or something? There's people might remember what I'm mentioning there, but I'm pretty sure the episode got into. I think the episode got into hot water because there's like a speech about Data questioning like terrorism and actions and stuff like that. Obviously, I don't want to dive into it too much because I think it was for a reason. I'm pretty sure it still is in the release version.
Was it with the Irish reunification?
Yes, I think it may have been.
Banned in the UK.
It was a bit of a weird discussion about because of the time it was released, but again, it started connecting with real world events there, and I think it's a testament to the show when things happen like that because it shows it's connecting really well with what's actually going on.
Definitely.
But obviously, we could sit here all day and ramble about Star Trek, Picard speeches, and also the upcoming Picard things, because realistically, it's fantastic to talk about. Like, Picard is a central, important character to the franchise. Obviously, we're back with him next week as well. We're having 2 Star Trek shows on air at the same time with Star Trek Discovery and obviously Star Trek Picard as well. And hopefully, season 2 is taking a different tonal change based on the trailer so far. It looks like it.
It's just the fact that, talking about Picard as like one of the main characters in Star Trek, we're going to have 10 series of Picard from TNG to Picard. And then, 5 movies?
Yeah.
So he is when people look at Star Trek, yeah, you can, oh, Spock is Star Trek, but I think a lot of the time it is Picard who is Star Trek. And it's just great that we are getting two more seasons of Picard, and hopefully we can get some good speeches in there, like we've said.
Indeed, I'm really hoping so. But everyone, we will leave you here today. Hopefully you've enjoyed our little short version about Star Trek Picard speeches. Jean-Luc Picard is almost like regarded as the ultimate captain for Star Trek, dare I say. A little bit of a controversial opinion, some may agree, but for me, he's one of my best captains in Star Trek. I love him, he's fantastic. But, hopefully it lives up to the expectations in Picard Season 2 as well. I'm currently in the middle of my Picard Season 1 rewatch and really enjoying it. I'm currently on episode 5 at the minute and can't wait to see 7 of 9 kick some ass, because we all need more of that in our life. But of course, if you're watching this on the Strange New Pod channel, then we do hope you're enjoying the Captain Picard Week celebrations. A massive thank you to Julian and the team for inviting us on board, and hopefully we'll do something more like this in the future as well. Just a shout out to everyone else who's joining. Obviously, across the weekend, you've got some more shows to look forward to. I believe the Antimatter Pod are doing The Change of Stuffiness, a defense of Captain Picard, which sounds like a great discussion. The Green Shirt Podcast is doing Picard by the Yard, fashionably going when no one has gone before. I need to tune to that. That sounds hilarious.
Oh, that's going to be him in like his Rizian outfit. And that's going to be... I'm really looking forward to that now that you've said it.
The Duras Sisters Podcast doing Picard and Diplomacy. And on Sunday, I believe Trek Untold are doing Locutus of Borg, Jean-Luc Picard and Trauma. That sounds fantastic. And Starfleet Leadership Academy on Monday, and the Star Trek Discovery Pod as well. And I believe the Quadrant Pop are doing previous on Star Trek. Either way, there's a fantastic amount of stuff to check out over Captain Picard Week. We here on Trek Central will be reporting the latest Star Trek Picard news to you here, and hopefully we'll have some of the guys on soon to talk more about Picard and more fantastic things, because we've got Season 2 in just under 1 week now on Thursday the 3rd, I believe it is, isn't it, Dom? 3rd is when Picard airs. I'm excited for that. I can't wait. On the day we're recording this, because we're late, we're recording this on a Thursday, it'll be a week until Picard, but tomorrow when you watch it, less than a week, and it'll be fantastic. On that note, Dom, thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you for having me. And
also, we've been Trek Central. We'll be back with you very soon, and thank you once again to Strange New Pod for inviting us on. We'll see you soon. Goodbye, everyone.